Well, the past couple of weeks have been pretty busy here in Blues land. The St. Louis Blues have been active. They've brought us a real different look of for the future of Blues hockey, both short term with this upcoming 2025-26 season and long term with some of their younger additions as well. So today we're really excited to be joined by Mike Meyer to evaluate what the future of Blues hockey could look like. How high is the ceiling for recent first round draft pick Justin Carbonneau? When could we see him in St. Louis at the NHL level? What about Logan Mailloux, recently acquired in a trade? Is he a long term answer as a top four defenseman of the future? As well as what could the free agent signings mean for the Blues? Could it push them back to the playoffs, signing these two center UFAs? And which prospects stood out at development camp this year? We're going to talk about all that on today's episode of Note News. Welcome into another episode of Note News. We're a St. Louis Blues podcast. It's John and Alec with you as always, and joined by a special guest, Mike Meyer. Excited to have you back on the pod, Mike. How you doing? And where can the people find you these days? You've been busy.
Gents, I've been good. Thanks so much for having me back. You guys, all over the place. If you want to be able to find tweets, any of that, you can be able to find me, of course, here over on Twitter at M_Meyer3. If you want to be able to read the written work, along with anything that's going on here with St. Louis sports over at STL Sports Central. If you're interested in looking over here at prospect news over here at Substack at Blue Notes Rising. Ton of different things will keep me busy, but lots and lots and lots of Blues coverage here posted.
Awesome. Yeah, great stuff by Mike. If you aren't following him, what are you doing? Go follow all his stuff. It's great. And we are a St. Louis Blues podcast. We go live at least twice a week, but the Blues have kept us busy. We talk all things Blues, and so if that sounds like your type of thing, and you want to follow along with us, join us live, or watch our episodes after, we'd love to have you. So hit that subscribe button, like this video, follow, rate, review wherever you listen, Spotify and Apple, and then follow us on socials at Note News Pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Post a lot of other great stuff over there, and there's been a lot of love coming for us in the subscriber area, so we appreciate that. Keep it coming. Get us to 500, that would be awesome. But anyways, let's get into hockey because we got a lot to talk about here. Mike, I want to start the conversation. We can kind of move in chronological order here, starting with the draft. And the Blues picked 19th overall. There were some questions about whether they would hold on to that pick and make a choice, or if they would trade up or down. Ultimately, they obviously decided to make the pick when Justin Carbonneau, young winger, was available at that spot. They selected him. So first, we want to get your thoughts on, and we can start the conversation here. Like, what kind of player is Justin Carbonneau? Like, what do you see in this guy, and do you think he was the right pick at 19 with some of the other names available?
Well, I think at 19, he was absolutely the right pick here. I think that this is a player who could have gone in the top 10 very easily, very well. So here, like at the top 15. And so to be able to have him be able to fall back a few more picks here to the Blues here at 19th overall, I think you're going to be looking back at redrafts 4, 5, 10 years here from now, and fans are going to be asking themselves, how in the world did Justin Carbonneau fall to 19th overall? The Blues are getting a really good, hard-nosed, blue-collar worker. I mean, I think that this is a guy, whenever he does make it here to the NHL, is going to very quickly become a fan favorite. This is a guy who's able to come to work with his lunch pail, his work boots on, just each and every single game, just give his all every single shift. He's a guy who, from everything I've listened to, he doesn't like to go around people. He likes to go through them. So be able to put that here all on top of the fact that he profiles as a top six winger, even potentially as a top line winger. Watching him here, and I know we'll get into development camp here a little bit later, but this is the guy who, I mean, stood out head and shoulders above most players that was here at the camp. For a guy who's only 18 years old, that's extremely impressive.
Yeah, he's becoming a fan favorite, like you said. It sounds like that profile you gave sounds like the type of player that Blues fans are gonna love. So I'm excited to see what we get out of him. I'm curious to know, like, what what if any comps you have for this guy? Because one that I've seen is like a Dylan Holloway. Like that's one of the reasons that Dylan Holloway endeared himself to fans in St. Louis so quickly, is sort of a similar like tough style of play. Maybe not as much going through guys as we'll see out of Justin Carbonneau, but there's a little bit of power to his game. So I'm curious to hear what you see in Carbonneau, if there are any comps or any guys that you think he's similar to.
Yeah, Holloway was absolutely a player who I saw a lot of comps here for him. Um, I think it wasn't until I saw him in person, saw his game, that TJ Oshie really gave me it was a lot of vibes of like, okay, this dude's built a lot like TJ Oshie. And then of course, I think everybody saw around the internet the reverse hit that he had in the neutral zone and just be able to take it down ice and be able to score. He's got a little bit more skill than I think Oshie ever did. The ability to be able to do a 360 move, score on the backhand, be able to just make some good heads up plays. But if this is a new era, a little bit more skilled version of TJ Oshie, plus add the physicality, I think that's a pretty good comp that I would be able to make here for him.
Nice.
That is so much fun. I mean, as one of the two players who got me into hockey in the first place, that's such a fun comp. I haven't heard that before, but I love that. To me, Carbo is like such this like fascinating hybrid player of like sort of modern NHL play where, like you said, he sort of has this older hockey style of like play hard, play physical, forecheck, and the rest will figure itself out. But he also is this like skiller who can do these crazy moves that you would expect more of like a modern player or a Jordan Kyrou to do. And then he also like can score too. Like he has a really nice shot and a nice ability to place his shot. So I just think he's such a fascinating and fun like hybrid forward of just like pure hockey playing ability that the sky is absolutely the limit. I can't wait. This kid's growing on me so much.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why, you've got Doug Armstrong already making comments of this guy could break camp, and
Yeah.
I don't, he's usually a little bit more shy and reserved about making those comments of well, let's wait and see. Well, but the fact that he's coming out this early and already saying he could surprise some people. He could surprise, but I still think the best move here for him is to either go back to juniors or go to the NCAA. The decision still is up to him here right now. But the fact that he's already getting votes of confidence that he could be able to play in the NHL here at 18, almost 19 years old, that speaks volumes here of not just his play, his size, but also of his maturity.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen some questions in the chat about that question about, let me see, percentage chance that he plays any games at all in the NHL this year, from someone in the chat. Do you have an answer? Like, I wonder, I mean, if obviously if he makes the team out of camp, that's one way to do it. But if he goes to maybe NCAA, like, could we see him at year's end, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it depends on if he goes the NCAA route. I believe it's to Boston College, is where he'd be going to. So it would depend on how far that BC would end up going. I think all signs are kind of pointing towards him going to the NCAA. Maybe Gavin McKenna kind of influenced that decision here just a little bit. We don't know. But I think that he's done more than likely going to the CHL. I think the decision now is for him to be able to go to the NCAA. The Blues, if he does go the CHL route, the Blues still do have a chance to hold on to him, give him some preseason games, and even give him, a few games here in the earlier part of the season before loaning him back here to juniors. I'd say it's about a 25% chance that we see him this season, and that might be generous.
Still, it's pretty
That
crazy.
feels, yeah, like a pretty good chance, which for a guy who literally just got drafted, I mean, you typically only see that for the
19th.
first like top 4 or 5 picks in the draft each year. To get that value at 19 is just, I mean, we were talking about this draft like pre the selection of everything, of how it's not that good of a draft. There's not that many options. We probably should trade the pick for a win now player. And then Doug Armstrong goes out and makes one of the best picks of the draft, and everyone's like clamoring over the kid instantly. And it's just a reminder that we have like one of the best draft and developed staffs in the league.
Well, it's funny to be able to hear, post draft, Armstrong said that, before that he would go, how they do it is they have groups of players, all listed out here like on their
Right.
board and say, okay, if this guy here is in tier 1, tier 2, like this is like before we have to go and drop down here to our next tier. And they said Carbonneau was the last player available within that tier, whatever tier that was, that, he was the last one that was there. Now, where at in that tier? Was he actually the last player that was listed? Was he in tier 1, tier 2? Who knows? But yeah, they seem very, very high here on him. And again, Carbo is not giving them any reason to not doubt him whatsoever. So again, to be able to get him at 19, this was a massive, massive win for the Blues.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess moving on here. So you mentioned you were at development camp in person. Was there anyone else who sort of caught your eye, or you think raised or lowered their stock, or what was perhaps an overall team takeaway for the prospect system in terms of individuals or in terms of just as a whole watching Carbo play, but then also the rest of the guys who showed up?
Well, again, Carbo here, he was definitely just right there amongst the top players, if not the top player at that development camp. I attended. The first day was me just watching the defensemen. They did a good job of separating them out, defensemen and forwards here for their practice. They had enough guys to be able to end up doing that. Theo Lindstein looked really, really good. I'm very, very excited to be able to see what he's going to end up doing here in the AHL this season. Can't imagine he goes to the ECHL at all. But I'm thinking, and this is pure tinfoil hat speculation here. If he, and because I've been thinking about this a lot for the last 2 days. So in the event that he comes in, most SHL players are almost NHL ready. I mean, they need very little polishing before being ready. If Lindstein is ready, does he affect the decision to re-sign Cam Fowler? Because you've already got Broberg, you've already got Tyler Tucker. So I mean, you're not just going to go with Lindstein, Broberg, and Fowler, because you still want that sandpaper, you want that grit, and Tyler Tucker brings it. So unless there's a different decision, and Mailloux just brings it, I don't know. It could be very interesting. And again, like maybe they just leave Lindstein as their number 3 pairing defenseman, but he could be able to bring a little bit of a wrinkle in that decision. Jiricek looked really good. I loved his edge work. He looked like, the lower body here was strong. He still does need a little bit of work here, and that's where, I believe he's going back to the CHL here again this season. Would love to just see him just be healthy and hopefully become, a top pairing guy here for the Bulldogs. Over on the forward side, Mercick has a wicked shot. I'm always impressed here with his shot. He just needs to, again, continue to work on his defensive play here just more than anything. Again, Carbo here looked good. Stancil, any single time that they're doing 3-on-3 play here with the scrimmages here each day, he had at least 1, maybe even 2 goals. Looked really good in the shootout. I think Stancil is going to make a big push here this season, here down in the AHL. The only guy who really I left wanting more was Adam Yeko. And that's not really a knock on him. I was just expecting him to be more of like one of the top performers in there. And just for whatever reason, he just kind of left me with like, that was fine. That was fine. Like you just wanted more here from him. So I'm really hoping here, just moving forward here this season, that he does repeat some of his actions and on the score sheet here as well, to change my mind here, I guess, a little bit. Because the door's still open for him to be a really good player. It's just, can he live up to that elevated talent and elevated level of competition?
Yeah, those are some interesting thoughts. I want to go back to the Cam Fowler point, like with Theo Lindstein, and I think in some ways Adam Yurchek sort of is a part of this conversation as well, or maybe a Logan Mailloux. Like the I'm curious about how Theo Lindstein's like offensive capability sort of affects the calculus. Like I feel like a reason why Cam Fowler is such an effective top pair defenseman, especially alongside Colton Parayko, is he brings a little bit more of an offensive edge to his game.
Mm-hmm.
I think Broberg's got more in the tank offensively, counting stat wise. Um, you know, Logan Mailloux, really talented offensive guy, but you know that's not really what I think of when I think of a guy like Theo Lindstein. I think of more as sort of solid and dependable and steady. So I mean, am I undervaluing his offense there, or like you mentioned his development could make things more complicated with the Fowler decision. So how does his offensive capability play into that?
And that's where it's going to be interesting because him coming from the SHL, where he's only 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if the Blues believe that he's ready here, does he bring that level of offense here to the North American game? I mean, that's yet to be seen here just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's producing, because I think, we saw 2 seasons ago here in the U20s that he scored 2 goals, had 8 points in 7 games. Last season, he dried up here a little bit, but because he just wasn't really the guy here on the blue line for them, he still had 4 assists in 7 games here at the U20s here as well. So he definitely does have the playmaking ability. He's not as much of a goal scorer at that point, but he does still have a good shot here from the blue line. It just depends on that transition here to the North American ice, a little bit of a quicker and tighter feel here for himself. So again, it truly just depends on if the Blues were to feel like that he is ready. That's no way, shape, or form saying he will be, but again, certainly could be.
Sure. Well, I think unless you have anything else, John, I think we can then pivot to the next part of this, or did you have another piece?
Um, I don't think so. Yeah, just really excited about. I mean, I was also curious to see like just sort of quick overview after development camp. Do you think anyone has like raised or lowered their stock in any way? You mentioned you wanted to see more from. I think you said Yeko.
Mhm.
Um, was there anyone that significantly raised or lowered their stock, or anyone that stood out as like a sort of riser or faller in the system?
I think the biggest one, I mean, not to take the easy route here with this, but I think it was Carbonneau because you didn't
Agree.
really know
Yeah.
what you were going to get from him, and like where he's at. But the fact that he was this ready, I mean, again, and Dalibor Dvorsky wasn't even at this point, at this early on. So to think that we could be able to have a guy that's out that could or would outperform Dalibor Dvorsky is exciting. So to me, that's the one who definitely rose his stock here more than anyone.
Yeah. Agree. I mean, yeah, just like you said, the fact that comments like this are coming out at all about Carbonneau being potentially ready to crack the NHL roster or anything is just kind of unheard of. Like that is rare territory. So I don't know. Maybe we've got already the next Snuggerud now that one's already in the out of the system now. But just so much fun to watch him play.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, no doubt.
I think we want to, move on to the next big event of the Blues off season, which is
The
this
real
this
big
Logan
one.
May, yeah, this trade with Montreal, Logan Mailloux, in exchange for Zach Bolduc going the other way. It's tough to
Yeah,
see Bolduc go, man. I think everyone in Blues land was pretty excited about this guy. You know, middle six winger, potential for top six winger at some point. Almost scored 20 this year. Had 30 goal potential in there. So it was an exciting guy. Brought the defense, brought some power play capabilities as well. Um, but we kind of knew something like this was coming with how much Doug Armstrong and the Blues were talking about winger depth, winger depth, winger depth, and at some point you got a deal from that to make up for the other areas where you lack a little bit. So it's not surprising that the move came. I don't think it's super surprising that it's Bolduc. I think he was on the short list of guys to go if you wanted to get something back of real value, but it is still tough to see. And there's, I think, been I haven't seen a lot of takes out there that have been pretty neutral or pretty um, you know It's either I can't believe they let Zach Bolduc go. This is the worst move of recent memory for Doug Armstrong. And it's like, how many times we've been wrong about that. But anyways, or they're like
It's true.
this guy Logan Mailloux, super excited. It seems like people are either at two pretty different ends on this one. But I mean, I want to get your thoughts on Logan Mailloux. Like Logan Mailloux, do you think this was a good move for the Blues? Like both acquiring Mailloux, but also losing Bolduc to do it. And what do you see in a guy like Mailloux? What's the profile here?
Well, this is a huge roll of the dice. I think it's a huge roll of the dice. This was a guy who Armstrong had clearly had his eyes on in that draft class. When Mailloux said that he, please do not pick me here in this draft. I've made some mistakes. I need to be able to grow here from this. If you don't know what the mistakes that we're referring to, just do yourself a favor and Google Logan Mailloux, and you'll find it. So it's led to believe that if Mailloux was still going to be, available here to him at that point, like that he would have not have chosen Zachary Bolduc, that he would have chosen Logan Mailloux.
Mm-hmm.
I go back and forth on it because, like you said, I mean, this is a guy in Zachary Bolduc who was prime for a breakout here this coming season. A lot of chemistry. It was thriving underneath of Jim Montgomery's season. We didn't really see much of anything from him in the playoffs, but it's his first playoff exposure here in the NHL. Then again, on the other side, you don't really have a lot of NHL exposure period here in Logan Mailloux. This guy is way too good to be playing in the AHL here right now. He's still going to be eligible to be able to do so here next season, but it seems like that he's ready for that next step here in his hockey development, in his hockey career. He is an NHL defender. Where that his offensive levels come into here is yet to be seen. We saw, I believe it was 4 points in 7 games here for Mailloux last season. I don't have his numbers pulled up. But he
7 points sounds right.
Yeah. So he did perform well. It's just it's on a different team. There's that whole change of scenery factor. Does it pan out? I mean, you just there's so many unknown variables that I think that's just making people very uncomfortable because again, most people fear the unknown. They don't like change. And when you know that what you've got in Zachary Bolduc here already to say, okay, we're going to roll the gamble here of this prospect who has high upside, who does have high pedigree here about him, who does enjoy playing here with a lot of sandpaper and a lot of grit. It's just a lot of the unknown. I like the move because you do need that depth here, especially that high upside depth here on your blue line. But to deal Zachary Bolduc was, it's you try to separate out your personal feelings from what the actual the analytics and what the data is telling you. Was Zachary Bolduc going to be the guy who you can be able to build around here in the future? You can, but the Blues, like you said, they have a lot of winger depth that they could still continue to be able to pull here from here with another trade, but we'll see what that looks like. So I don't mind the trade, but it just I'm glad I'm not the one who's making the decisions.
Yeah. And I mean, to make this move at pretty much the last year of his career as a GM it's either really rolling the dice to just go out on the highest of high notes, or it's well, I'm not going to have a job in a year anyway, or my job's going to be less important, so I'll let Steiner deal with the fallout. But I don't think that's actually the case. That's tongue-in-cheek entirely. I think the other thing with Mailloux that I'm really opening up to the idea of is not only do you get a high upside young defenseman in the core, which is so desperately needed, because pretty much it's you're stacking one pick after one pick each year, and it's barely scraping by to get the depth up with Lindstein and then with Yudacek. But not only that, you get him on the right side, which to get a right shot defenseman, forget upside, just to find a right shot defenseman in the NHL right now is already kind of have to pay a premium for that. And to get that with the upside of a seriously offensively capable player, someone who can really be a threat, I think it's I see the reasoning, and like you said, I am glad that we're not the ones making the moves. And with Mayu, the way I think about this trade, I think, is that it looks really painful right now, and I don't even know if next year we'll be seeing the returns on the dividends of trading away Bolduc, because, like you said, he was primed for a real breakout. But I think down the line, like in 2026 and 2027, if Mayu can be a core piece of your defense to make a deep playoff run, that's absolutely a success, and I totally think that's in the cards. I just think it's going to take some time, but man, I am excited to have something to look forward to on the blue line. I forget what this feeling is like. It's amazing, but we want to get your thoughts too on more specifically breaking down Mayu, the player. One thing I always noted about Mayu's game was his ability not just to be an offensive addition to the team, but his ability to score as well. I mean, like you mentioned, he put up 4 points in 7 games. 2 of those were goals. And then last season in the AHL had 12 goals as a defenseman, which were about a little under half of his points, 12 of 33, came in the back of the net. So, yeah, I want to get your take on where you see Mayu's strengths and where, I mean, obviously, I think we all know his defense needs to grow, but how can he become a more serviceable NHL defenseman and really let that offense shine?
Well, I think, one of the things that you're going to start seeing here from him is you're going to see a guy who's not afraid to get up here on the rush, really find himself down low here for a good shot here, just whether it's in the point. I don't really see him crashing the net too terribly often. I think he'll leave that to some other guys. But this is a guy who's definitely not afraid to move around the offensive zone. I don't know if it's going to be quite the degree of like a Lane Hudson or even like a PK Subban whenever he was playing, where he's just like literally lapping the offensive zone. But this is a guy who I don't think that he's going to be afraid to say, okay, well, I don't like this setup, so I'm going to move around. And so we can start hopefully like making some things happen here for us. Similar how in a sense and fashion that you saw Cam Fowler do, similar how you saw Philip Broberg do here at times. I think that he's going to profile very, very well alongside of what these guys have and what they are. And now the fact that he can be able to come in here and work with some of our coaches, I think this bodes very, very well here for him, just in the system, in the setup. The fact that he can be able to work with even a guy like a Steve Ott, he's very, very much so like defensively minded, and so regardless of the position, this is a guy who I think he can learn a lot here from. And then should a Justin Falk still be in the lineup, we all know Colton Parayko is going to be in the lineup, and so there's a lot of veterans for him to be able to surround himself here with as well. And so not to be able to just learn how to be able to play the game on the ice, but to be able to how to conduct himself really also off the ice here as well. This is a young man who has really done a lot to grow up since his draft year and really take a lot of accountability here for himself. But again, the system that he's going to be coming into, I think this is a fantastic here fit for him offensively and defensively.
Yeah, for sure. I, as like a fan of sports in general, I think the thing I like, what? Yeah, yeah, shocker. As a fan of sports in general, I really appreciate good defense, and so that sort of hole in his game is a little bit concerning to me. But for that same reason, I really really love Philip Broberg, and I'm sort of interested to see what a pair of these two guys could look like. Either would their strengths make the other stronger, or would it be too different, and would they just fall apart? So I guess really what I'm asking is like, well, my question is twofold. So that first part is like, where could we see him at the NHL, right? Whether it's this season or his ceiling, but also when could we see him at the NHL? Because it sounds like Doug Armstrong is willing to give him that shot to. I think he said it's pretty much his job. He just has to come in and not lose it. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Do you think it's this year, and then where?
Yeah, I think that we do see him start the season here with the Blues. He more than likely will start it in that third pairing unit, unless he just comes in heads and shoulders already above Justin Falk. But the fact that I think that you saw already some of that chemistry happening here between Broberg and Falk just
Mhm.
throughout the season, I think that that may be the spot that they start here with. But it's going to almost be a situation that you see with on the forwards with Suter and Shen. My thought is
Hmm.
you're just going to have flexibility here just kind of throughout the lineup. And so wherever guys here are struggling, whenever that they do struggle or whenever that they're getting hot, you're going to see them get bumped up the lineup, and you're just going to see line juggling throughout the season. And that's not a bad thing here at all. I mean, he
Mhm.
just has so much flexibility that he can look to use in this lineup here now, where you'll probably see a Mayu just be on that third pairing unit throughout the season. But again, should an injury happen here to a Justin Falk, or should he begin to be able to struggle, especially as we start getting into December, January, February, where you're just tired. You're just tired. That's where you might be able to see some of the youth start to really take over here, and a Logan Mailloux, where he may get a couple of extra shifts here with Philip Broberg. So I think to be able to answer your question, if I'm answering it all here at that point, I think it's right away. And I think it's likely going to be on the third pairing line here with a Tyler Tucker. And boy, that has the nasty, nasty line here about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Two sides of the defenseman coin. You got your dangerous offensive talent, and then your gritty type. But yeah, watching a lot of tape of a guy like Mayu, like you said, a lot of shots from the point, but he's also
Hmm.
willing to move it around. Yeah, I'm excited to see. I think I think my take is wait and see, which I know is like not bold at all, but like Bolduc's a great guy. We're gonna miss him. But it just feels like for a young defenseman, and especially one whose game feels as like I don't know if volatile is the right word because it just seems like so much raw talent, and he's so promising in so many areas, but a little bit more concerning in some others that I'm really excited to see how he develops, how he polishes out, and yeah, a couple years down the line, I think both sides could be happy with making this trade.
Absolutely. Huge hockey trade. I mean, and it's going to hurt for both sides. It just
Yeah,
really, really will. But at the end of the day, Bolduc is probably going to play 16-ish minutes here, like with the Blues.
yeah,
But when you look at the other side here, Mayu's probably going to play 20 to 22 here a night. So
mm,
what's more valuable? Goals speak volumes, absolutely. But I think, there's a lot more responsibility that rides here on Mayu than what it would be here for Zachary Bolduc. But he's going to find himself in a great situation where he's playing top six minutes here with the Montreal Canadiens, and they're going to get a heck of a player.
I mean, hey, if we want to daydream, maybe there's even a situation where Bolduc has a bit of a sophomore slump and maybe scores 10 to 12, 15 goals, and Mayu actually pushes him for like goal totals between the two trade pieces.
That would be nice. That'd be nice. The dream would be, they just meet up in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So
Yeah, yeah, right.
or that the Blues signed Bolduc to his first free agent contract, right?
there you go. He pulls a David Perron and
Whoa,
he just comes back to the Blues.
Get him back.
love it.
I think we want to. Do you have anything else on Mayu, Alec, or should we pivot to these UFAs real quick?
No, I think we covered it. And check
Awesome.
out our
So
previous episode for more breakdown if you're interested too.
yeah, we've done a lot of talking about all these guys. So go check those out for sure. Yeah. So the next big news in Bluesland is how they handled free agency. One of the biggest areas of need, if not the biggest area of need, was the center position for the Blues this summer, and uh, they were really really intentional. I really like what they did about their center position. Really like what they did with their signings. So first signing Nick Bukestad to I think was it a 2-year contract,
Yeah.
Mhm.
or was it just yeah, okay, cool. Bottom six center guy, can play wing as well, but providing some more options at the you know depth center role, and then obviously the big one, Pia Suter for a couple of years as well at 4.125. So that was like Suter was my Alec knows, and I'm sure listeners of the pod know, but Suter was like my number one target of a realistic guy who wasn't going to break the bank and just fit in really well with what this team is and what they really need. So I'm thrilled that they got him. I'm thrilled that the top center left on the market chose St. Louis. I think that's awesome. So I mean, big picture, like, what do you think of these two guys? What are your thoughts on the signings? Do you think the center position is a strength for the Blues now, or at least not a weakness anymore? Like, how do you see these guys slotting in? As really, we just want to get your thoughts on these two guys, but like the discussion, it seems like there are so many permutations of where these guys could fit in. Like Bukestad can play center, wing, third line, fourth line, and then Suter, same deal, but like middle six. It seems like. And do you keep Holloway Shin-Kairu as your second line, or do you bump Shin down to a 3C? So what are your thoughts on these signings? How do you like these two guys? And what would you do if you were Jim Montgomery? Where would you put these two forwards?
You know, with all of these signings, it just kept reminding me of that quote from the movie Miracle, where he just keeps saying, like, we're building out options, fellas. Like, we're building out options. And that's exactly what they just keep doing. I thought it was a foregone conclusion that the Blues were going to land Mikael Granlund. But when I saw $7 million, I said the Blues escaped Mikael Granlund at $7 million. I really like it. I don't think that these moves necessarily raise the ceiling for them very much, more as reaffirming up the foundation more than anything itself. I think that, you know, building up the floor here, you know, you can be able to roll four lines. And like you said, like, you know, Nick Bukestad is just one season removed from, what was it, 25 goals or 20 goals or something, something crazy like that.
22 maybe?
Yeah. And the fact that we got him for next to nothing from what it seems like, you're getting a 6'6" body, over 200 pounds. I mean, this is just a massive man, who obviously can play the center role. He will likely start on the wing. That's what I would expect that he does. You know, and then you probably have Suter as his third line center. Shen likely starts here on the second line. But again, same thing with Falk and Mailloux. Should somebody start to falter here a little bit? Should somebody get tired? Should, you know, whatever the situation may end up being, you're going to see these guys interchange. Should you need some scoring, don't be surprised that you start to see Nick Bukestad thrown out there and say, hey, park your 6'6" butt right in front and block that goalie. You know, or just be comfortable just playing here on the wing, whatever the situation may end up being. I mean, these guys bring a lot of versatility and a lot of different strengths here to this squad that I think that the Blues were missing in guys here like Oscar Sundqvist, like Texier, like Joseph, who just were a little bit more one-dimensional. But now the fact that you can be able to see some of these guys thrown out on the penalty kill, on the power play, on the five, like, you know, all situations, like you have all of these different options here for the Blues at this point in time that, again, while it doesn't necessarily raise the ceiling for me much, it just gives me more confidence that when these guys are getting thrown out here, you know, on a third line, a fourth line, they're like, yeah, cool, let's go. You know, you can be able to easily roll all those lines and you feel very comfortable and confident about it.
Yeah,
For
I
sure.
really love the way you framed that of like the way I've been thinking about it is they just have all these puzzle pieces to fit whatever game script that they're going to, which was such a strength last year, which I think, if we're being honest, was like a really hot stretch of play where the team gelled together, found what worked for them. But if you're trying to project that over years and years to come, that's a little bit harder to do. So I think it was really prudent of Doug Armstrong in the front office to find complementary skill sets to those core pieces that established and brought themselves to the forefront at the beginning or through the regular season last year. And now not only with Bugstad and Suter, but also, like you said, with Sonny, with Texier, with Shen, all can play depth center roles that you can really mix and match, which helps you deal with things like injuries, which helps you deal with things like slumps, and it helps you deal with slumps for other players. Like if a player is just not working out, maybe it's a sole winger, like maybe Dylan Holloway is slumping and you need to break up Holloway, Shen, Kairu. Okay, let's try, Thomas Booch Kairu. We can put Suter with Snuggerud and then put a complementary piece. I don't know, like I'm not a coach, but like the point is you can try out so many different combinations, which Monty did show that he was able to do and to find success with, which I have all the faith in the world in Montgomery, who has proved himself to be one of the best coaches in the NHL. That now you give him this like candy shop of offensive weapons to pick from, and I mean it really is. I hope at least, and I think it's going to be like Jim Montgomery as a kid in a candy store picking out which flavor of chocolate bar or whatever he wants to beat, the Carolina Hurricanes, or sorry, John, just a random example. But the way that they've built this is so, like, when all the moves were happening, it was, like trading Bolduc for Mailloux. That one hurt, obviously. Signing Bugstad, and it's like, okay. And then the Suter signing comes through. I'm like, all right, like a depth center, like that can be a 2C. I like it. And then I think about how all these pieces fit in and just the amount of permutations that you can do, let alone the fourth line. I mean, the fourth line could have like 7 players battling for a position. And, the saying goes that competition breeds excellence. Like, there is a real hope that I think the depth in this team can be an underrated strength, because I don't think it'll shine like, say, the depth of the Dallas Stars, who obviously just have high-paid players on every line and can score goals at any minute in the game. It's going to be a lot more creative, and it's going to be a lot more, I think, fluid and flexible throughout the game. But I think that's going to be a really fun product to watch.
Nope, you nailed it. And I think one of the things that we still haven't mentioned here just yet is the fact that they can still be able to pull from an area of strength in Dalibor Dvorsky, Kaskiamaki, Otto Stenberg. Like, they still have so many other options that will likely head to start the season here in the AHL, that you still feel very comfortable calling their names and saying, hey, you're next man up at this point. So again, options, and options.
Yes,
yeah, agreed.
Love it.
I feel like, I mean, in the modern NHL, right? You're seeing third lines. They can score. They're talented, And I mean, this is a unfair example for the Blues, but Brad Marchand was playing on the third line for the Florida Panthers. So like that is happening in the modern NHL. And so having a guy like Suter, or Shen down there, like that's not a bad thing. You can never have too much of a good thing as well. So another question is, like, on that same point, do you think we maybe see Dalibor Dvorsky doing a little bit of what Robert Thomas did in his early days, and playing on the wing? Maybe we see him on that third line, on Suter's wing or on Shen's wing, or something like that at some point this season, because he got his cup of coffee. Not much to show for it counting wise, but there were times out there when you could tell he was out there. He had some presence, and didn't get an assist on it, unfortunately, but had a pretty nice play against Nashville. So do you think we see more of Devo this year? Do you think we see him on the wing, or maybe on the third line there?
I think we see him this season. I think to answer that question would come more along the lines of, do the Blues acquire Bo Byram or not? Because if they acquire Bo Byram, yeah, and we can probably get into that here, but like, if they acquire Bo Byram, then I think that you have a stronger likelihood of seeing him.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, so what are your thoughts on Bo Byram? I mean, this has been the dominant topic. Yeah, I mean, this is like dominated Blues social media. I mean, that was our last episode. It was on Bo Byram. Like, I think Alec and I were split. It seems like Blues fans are split. I mean, like, more offensive talent there, but what do you think of his fit with the Blues and his cost as well?
I think he's played really, really, really well with Darlene.
Hmm.
A world class player. I mean, very likely going to turn into a Hall of Famer. Um,
Yeah.
Away from Darlene, he has not looked nearly as good. Now,
Hmm.
that being said, the players that he was playing with when he was not playing with Darlene were not the greatest. So it could just be a personnel fit. He played a very, very good role in Colorado. I think it was just more of like a numbers game for him. Um, from what I've heard, is that it's not so much of the fact like that he doesn't want to be in Buffalo. It doesn't, it's not one of those types of things. It's more of like the opportunity here for him. Is he going to get time here on the power play? Is he going to get higher elevated minutes? Is he like he wants to really have the chance to play the best hockey that he can. And I
Hmm.
can't say I blame him for wanting to explore options outside of Buffalo. But again, it doesn't seem like that he wants to leave Buffalo. Like he just wants the time. Um, so that being said, there's a great fit for him in St. Louis, where he could very likely be. It would be either he or Mayu that would eventually take over as the successor to Colton Parayko. Um, and you would have a really, really good, strong top four, probably potentially like one of the best in the league. I don't like the costs because it would potentially cost you Jake Neighbors. And the fact that you would have to get rid of Jake Neighbors and Zachary Bolduc in the same offseason for Logan Mailloux and Bo Byram, I don't know.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And then does it cost you $9 million per season for the next 7, 8 seasons? Like
Hmm.
that's another hard pill to swallow because is he going to be worth $9 million?
Yeah.
$9 million won't be worth as much in just a couple seasons with the rising cap. But boy, that's a lot of money to swallow here for a guy who has questions about him.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Again, like the wing is definitely an area that you still have a lot of strength and a lot of depth here on that you could pull a guy like a Jake Neighbors, but you also then have to be able to stomach the fact that you're giving up, call it 40 goals, but potentially 50 goals here this season that you're trying
Right.
then to be able to make up for.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
there's a lot of cost to be able to weigh at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a tough loss to lose those guys for sure. And I think I like his fit more as that long term plan. I don't
Right.
I don't like it so much this season. I think Alec has sort of soured on the idea. I was still sort of mostly in favor of it, assuming the return is fair and the contract is fair, which $9 million is not. But that's a big if, right? So I think I think I like the long term idea of it. Once Cam Fowler and Colton Parayko and Justin Falk and those kinds of guys are gone, like you're gonna have to fill in for them at some point. So I like the offensive, upside of a guy like Byram long term, but it would be it would hurt that return going the other way would hurt for sure.
It would be another Logan Mailloux hockey trade.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why, like what I said last episode to summarize was I just don't think it makes sense because of the Mayu deal. That it feels like too many parts out, not enough security in. And also I want to shout out someone in the chat put this last episode that like this could be potentially a trade deadline move, even if he just gets a
Right.
bridge deal on his arbitration. Even then, you're still trading for someone with multiple years of term who you can also extend potentially, though he may want to elect free agency at that point. But regardless, I think right now it feels like the ship has mostly sailed, and I think especially Army's comments on various podcasts and other sources also kind of sounds like the roster is pretty much set for the time being.
He said that last season, and then you get Holloway and Broberg.
Yeah, wow. That takes me back, man. But
one whole year.
yeah. Well, just it's weird to think about. But yeah, I am I don't know. I'm very hopeful for Mayu, but I think putting too many eggs in that basket of, well, they have promise, it could be potentially harmful long term.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I agree that could be more of like a trade deadline type of a conversation, but that's where this arbitration situation really, really, really could hinder what the decision here looks like. If it's a 1 year deal, then he still has one more year left here of control than because he's got 2 more years left then until he becomes an unrestricted free agent. I believe he's more than likely going to file for 2 years, and then that would walk him into
That
unrestricted
makes
free
sense.
agency.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe is going to end up happening. And if he's going to only get 2 years and the Blues have no guarantees whatsoever that they can be able to hold on to Bo and Byram, and then to say, hey, I'm going to trade you Jake Neighbors, I don't see that happening. Like, unless for some reason that he can be able to come up with some sort of an agreement where he's going to be able to retain Bo Byram here for the long term, I don't see Jake Neighbors being the guy that gets moved out. So for me, I would want a little bit more security in that decision.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I know we're running low on time. I do have a couple like quick hits just because people are talking about it in the chat. And these are some other um, dominant topics in the Blues off season. So we can unless y'all have more elaborate or longer points on these, we can make them a little bit quicker. But Jordan Kyrou, I mean Frank Saravalli will not stop talking about Jordan Kyrou. We're all against it, right?
Eye roll.
Can we say eye roll? Not going to happen.
Unless it was for a massive return.
Right.
No.
Cool.
I'm not giving up a 35 plus goal scorer.
Perennial.
Yeah.
I'm tired of having this conversation all the time, but Frank won't stop talking about it. Okay, and then the last thing is, who do you give out extensions to? Because I'm really curious to see what they'll do with Dylan Holloway, Philip Broberg. I love these guys. I think personally I've seen enough. I'm like 8 years. Might come back to bite me, but I love the upside on these guys. Two of my favorite players. Cam Fowler is another guy that his name has popped up in extension talk. So thoughts on those three guys with extensions, and any others if you've got any thoughts. You as well, Alec.
Alec, I'll let you answer here first.
Sure. Well, I think definitely the offer sheet boys are ready to go, and their price is probably only going to go up. I think it's gambling a bit much to expect, or I mean, if you're hoping to pay them less on a regression, then you're hoping that your hockey team performs worse. So I just think that's bad process in general. So I think with both Holloway and Broberg, given their age, it feels like the right time. However, I don't think it has to be done in the off season. I think it could be done like sort of in preseason or sometime around then. And it kind of feels like, I mean, it feels like it won't just because it hasn't yet. But then again, we're still on July 8th. Free agency was a week ago. So I think probably the dog days are not quite setting in yet, and we're all just clamoring for more NHL content. I think the deals get done. I think they're both 6 to 8. I think, I don't know why. I just kind of have a feeling that Holloway gets a long-term like 8 or like max term deal, and I kind of have a feeling Brobergs is going to end up being more like 6, because I think with his injury, with his missed time, he might want another chance at some kind of a payday if it's not like the full guaranteed contract. Versus I think Dylan Holloway proved all that he needed to, and more. So I would sign them to like a 6x8 and an 8x8 respectively, or I mean, heck, just give them the matching Kyrou and Thomas deals for the serendipitous nature of it. Why not? But Yeah, I'm ready to sign them both, and I think the Blues are too, but that's just because I know the Blues are smart.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make a priority to sign Dylan Holloway, um, which is crazy because again, I think it was last season the Blues really wanted Philip Broberg,
Hmm.
absolutely wanted Philip Broberg, and then like, oh, here's this guy Dylan Holloway, like that we're also going here after, and we didn't necessarily know the weight that a Dylan Holloway would hold here, like in this lineup.
Yeah.
But I think because of his versatility, um, I think he's the guy who you prioritize. And I'm just sitting here looking at Puckpedia. Um, Fowler, I think it
Fowler's
sucks
a
to say
tough
like
one.
Fowler's really, really tough. I think it depends like what his price tag would be. If he's wanting a pay raise, I mean, he's only making, and I say only, like he's only making $4 million, which is crazy. Um,
From the Blues, right? Because isn't Anaheim
correct.
retaining 2.5?
Let me pull this up. I
Yeah, I'm
believe there
pretty
was
certain.
some retained. Yes.
But still, that's a great bargain for the Blues to
Yes.
be paying him for.
So it just depends like what Fowler's price tag here would look like. Again,
Yeah.
rising salary, rising cap, like I totally understand all of that.
Yeah.
Um Broberg's gonna be your LD1 here of the future, and I think you have to prioritize here. And again, that's where Theo Lindstein like really just I think unintentionally plays a large wrinkle role in this decision, because you're going to have to push him up to the NHL here, in my opinion, sooner than later. What sooner looks like is I don't know what that is here just as of yet. But if you were to give Cam Fowler a 2-year contract extension, say it's worth 5 million, that's a heck of a deal, and it still allows you time for Lindstein to continue to grow and mature here in the AHL, and be able to
Yeah.
slowly but surely just take over his role. So,
I
um,
wouldn't hate that.
nope. So I think in order for me, it would be Holloway, probably Holloway, Broberg, Fowler. Here will be my priority.
Nice.
Hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
Um, all right. I want to ask one last question here before we close out, real quick. I want to get thoughts on the two big talking points of the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I mean, we saw what Dalibor Dvorsky and Jimmy Snuggerud can do in the NHL. Boy, was it fun. What's your take just on their impact for this season? I mean, obviously Snugs, on the NHL roster. Dally is at the door, if not already in. But how do you feel about them coming into the year, and what's sort of an expectation points wise?
I am cautiously optimistic regarding Snuggerud. I want to be a little more reserved simply due to the fact that he's never played this many games. So to be able to see him play a full 82 very soon in 84 before the postseason, I think is going to be a lot. So I think you could be able to easily see him score 15, see him score 20s, probably, but more than 20, I mean, I would be very, very pleasantly surprised with to see him score over 20 goals in his first full season here in the NHL. And that may just be me just downplaying it, but again, I want to make sure that he can be able to hold up to the wear and tear here of playing that many games. Um, Dvorsky, I think we see him get his first NHL goal this season, first couple of points.
I'd hope so.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. um, I would be very. I think that he would be capable to score probably at a point every third game, is like the pace that I would put him on. And that just like however long and however many games that he sees, if a third of a point here per game is like where I
Hmm.
would see his pace.
Yeah.
Nice. I
All
I
right.
feel like just as to sort of close out here, I feel like I'm starting to see the vision come together with the additions they're making. Short-term UFAs and bringing in some young talent where they have needs and continue to draft and develop well. I'm excited about the future of Blues hockey here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Plenty to be excited for.
An army we trust, right?
In
I think
Steiner, we trust.
I think it was, I might be getting his name wrong. Dan Riley on Twitter used
Hmm.
the phrase Doug Lex Armstein, and I haven't been able to get that out of my head. I love it.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
in
I
Doug
love it.
Lex Armstein we trust. All right, man. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. Great to have you as
Yeah.
always.
Yep. Likewise, guys. Yep. Always enjoy coming on here and be able to just chat here with you guys.
Awesome. You can find Mike over on Twitter, I believe M_Meyer3. Is that right?
Yep. Yep. That's it.
Awesome. Got it right. Find his work on Substack, on STL Sports Central, all that. He does a lot of great coverage of Blues and prospects and really anything you want. So, like I said, if you're not following up, keeping up with Mike's work, what are you doing? You got it.
True.
It's great stuff.
Appreciate it,
Great
guys.
stuff. Well, that'll do it for us this time. We're going to be back probably either this weekend or early next week to talk Blues hockey. So if you want to join the chat and keep up with all of our episodes and all that, then we'd love to have you back. Thanks to everyone watching live. This has been a really fun chat, really active, and yeah, keep it coming. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're getting close to 500. Crazy how fast that's been happening for us. So thanks for the love. Keep it going. Share the pod with your friends. Like this video. Follow, rate, review wherever you listen, Spotify and Apple. It really does help us out. And then follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, @NoteNewsPod. You can engage with us over there. Check out everything else that we post and see when we're going live. We'll post announcements on all those platforms. So again, thanks to everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thanks again to Mike. And of course, as always, boys, let's go Blues.
Let's go
Let's
Blues.
go, Blues.